Welcome to the new YouTube channel. If you haven't already done it, hit the subscribe button to follow us all season long for updates and content. So happy that you're here. It's going to be a great year. Welcome back to yet another Richard Sherman podcast. And first off, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say thank you guys for all the subscriptions, for following, for watching our videos. We like to have a good time on here, and we're going to have an outstanding season. But Mitchell, CeeDee Lamb, $34 million a year, Mitchell. And as the person who said he wasn't a receiver, number one, he deserved every penny based off his performance last year and the year before. He's their go-to guy, the most targets in the league, I believe, or right up there, right, one or two. Had a great season, been phenomenally consistent for the Dallas Cowboys. But people wonder why it's taking so long to pay these receivers, and why is this such an odd year, and so many receivers holding out and so many receivers holding in, and what's the deal, Mitchell? And the same is true with your boy Ja'Marr Chase. Ja'Marr Chase, one of the top receivers in the National Football League. He wants to get paid like his LSU brethren, Justin Jefferson. I mean, that was a lot of money in that room at LSU, Mitchell. There was a lot of money in that room at LSU.
And Odell was throwing around a lot of money before they got paid too. So, Richard, let's start with CeeDee Lamb, though, because as you mentioned, last year, this time, you weren't his fan. You know, you didn't like him. You said it.
I don't dislike him.
I know you didn't dislike him as a human being, but you said this guy's not a wide receiver one. I think he proved a lot of people wrong last year. He's become one of the faces of the franchise in Dallas, and they paid him as such. Jerry Jones finally has to bite the bullet and pay this man. Richard, you got to talk a little bit more in depth about this wide receiving market, because to me, these numbers have become so extrapolated. I mean, you got guys getting paid mid-30s now, when it seemed like a couple years ago, $20 million was top end, and we thought that was a ton of money. This is blowing that out of the water.
Yeah, Mitchell, usually the markets grow with the cap pretty consistently, and it's usually percentages of the cap. And the league will never outright say it. The owners will never outright say it, but that's how they always systematically did it. It'd be, corners and receivers are right around 10 to 12% of the cap, depending on which one it is, what year it is, sometimes a little higher, sometimes a little lower. Quarterbacks are right between 17 and 20% of the cap, higher or lower, whatever. I mean, those numbers probably they're still just about even. But the receiver market and the corner market are usually married right around $1 or $2 million difference. Top receivers getting 20, the top corners probably getting 18. And then one day, I don't know when it was. I think maybe Devontae or Tyreek, they broke it. They broke the system. One of those teams broke it. And the corner receiver market, the gap between them just became tremendous. I think the top corner may be right around 21 million right now. The top receivers at 35. It's never been a $14 million gap. And that's the problem with the league right now, Mitchell. Because if you ask any GM, you ask any team, you ask probably a casual fan, the importance of each position when it comes to a football team. If you're building a roster and you said, who are you picking first? You go with your quarterback first. So that's why they get paid the most. Then it's a debate. If you're an offensive guy, you say left tackle. If you're a defensive guy, you say D end or corner, get to the quarterback, things like that. But you never say receiver. I don't think anybody's building their team receiver first. And no offense to the receivers. They're doing a great job. And hey, it's their world. We just living in it. They should be taking advantage as they are. But that's what's wrong with the market right now. When receivers are getting paid more than left tackles, then the algorithm is off, Mitchell. The team building algorithm is off, and there needs to be a correction. And I don't know when it's going to happen, because for all intents and purposes, the receivers are going to continue to push the market as they should. And just like Trent Williams is looking at that, he's looking at these receivers like, heck you mean $35 million for a receiver? I'm a left tackle. And you telling me 28, 29 million? Like, no, I want 35. Rightfully so, because the most valuable position, it's a changer. Like, receivers can get hurt and you can find a guy comparable. Maybe not top guys like Justin Jefferson and Tyreek, you know what I mean? But You can usually find a guy that can be productive and keep your offense going. You look at the Kansas City Chiefs last year. What $30 million receiver did they have when they won it? And that's back to back. I don't think they've had a $30 million receiver when they've won it. And not to say you can't do it that way, but it's just rare. It's rare to see a team do it with a receiver as one of your highest paid guys in this new day and age, because it's such a disproportionate number right now that it's getting ridiculous, and that's why it's harder. I called this 3 years ago that Ja'Marr Chase is going to have a hard time getting paid, Mitchell. I said it.
I remember.
It's still true because Mike Brown is not paying guys. He had to bite the bullet, and I'm sure he begrudgingly paid Joe Burrow. Not because Joe Burrow isn't talented and isn't a franchise quarterback or hasn't performed to deserve the money he has, because Mike Brown doesn't want to pay anybody, Mitchell. He literally wants to have 35-man roster if he could and have a couple guys playing both sides of the football. I'm not saying I heard it out of his own mouth. I'm not saying I've sat in meetings and heard him say things like that, but that's the mindset they're dealing with. So when it comes to paying a receiver $35 million because Ja'Marr Chase has a great case to say, hey, Justin Jefferson got it, my LSU brethren got it, I need the same thing. He has a great case to say that. He's been very consistent, been dynamic, arguably one of the top receivers, if not the top receiver in the National Football League. But it's changing the way teams are building. You used to pay corners top money. Now corners are looking at receivers like, how are receivers getting $14 million more than us? That doesn't sound right. And I don't know what's going to correct it, but a correction has to come, and it has to come soon. So with the Brandon Aiyuk situation, it's only making matters worse in San Francisco because you really don't have to do anything, but it's going to challenge a lot of things because as he sits on the sideline, it's much easier when a guy's removed. If a guy's removed and you're at home and you're chilling and the team doesn't see you, it's cool. You know what I mean? You can kind of get away with it. The team's not seeing you. You're like, man, I hope he gets his money, but it is what it is. But when you're inside the building and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, working out, treatment, staying in shape, guys are seeing you, just human nature kind of kicks in and you're like, well, if they start losing, it becomes an issue. If they're winning, Mitchell, it doesn't become an issue at all for anybody but BA. But if they start losing, I would guess some conversations start to happen, and BA starts to get leverage at that point. But this is still a league where guys care about winning, especially a team like that where the championship window is potentially closing because of these deals and because of the deals coming up and money. You got to pay Trent more. Maybe you can manipulate that and move the third year to the second, to the first, guarantee 2 years or something to get him, to appease him and get him back in the building. But they don't get Trent Williams paid. The wheels they're not off the car, Mitchell, but they're rattling.
They're rattling. We had the appetizer last week. Now it's time to feast. College football is back. Don't miss out on any of the action. Jump in at DraftKings Sportsbook. It's a full slate of games in week 1, including the big matchup in Atlanta between the preseason number 1 and number 16 teams. This is going to be DraftKings' biggest college football season to date. Enjoy the ride now all the way through the expanded playoffs. Plus, all you newbies getting into the college spirit, here's something extra special. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get 200 bonus bets instantly. Score big with DraftKings all college football season long. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code Richard. That's code Richard for new customers. Get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
It's football season, and you can now get almost anything you need delivered by Uber Eats. What do we mean by almost? Well, you can't get a running back delivered, but you can get baby back ribs delivered. A strong defense? That's a no. But a strong deodorant? That's a yes. A 6-pack of abs? Definitely no. But a 6-pack of beers? Uber Eats can get you that. There you have it. You can get almost anything for game day delivered with Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Alcohol in select markets. Product availability may vary by region. See app for details.
Richard, I want to talk more about the Niners, but I want to close the book here a little bit on this wide receiver market. I got a little conspiracy theory. You talked a little bit about the new era of conspiracies, Rich. This new era of the NFL. One that when you played, it was kind of trending that way, but it seems that the NFL has given so much leeway to offensive players. We've seen it with all the rule changes, with the pass interference calls. We've seen it with the new hip drop rule. We saw it firsthand, Richard, in Detroit in the NFL draft, when I think 80% of the first round picks were offensive players. I mean, you saw guys, cornerbacks, top flight cornerbacks, slipping and sliding all the way down. My team, the Detroit Lions, one of the beneficiaries of that. Terrion Arnold, widely considered a top 12, top 15 talent, slides all the way to 24. Richard, is this more that the wide receivers are that much more valuable, or is it just that the league has changed the way the game is played so much to make offensive players that much more valuable?
They are not, Mitchell, because the game has not changed very much. I mean, other than those rules, and they're getting worse every year, but they haven't changed the value of the receiver position. But you know what has? These receivers are showcasing when they get the spotlight. And you got to give a lot of credit for Odell Beckham Jr. Not that he was the first one. You know, there were many great Hall of Fame showmen before Odell Beckham Jr., but he brought another microscope to the position. And then you got to give guys like Justin Jefferson, Ja'Marr Chase, Deebo Samuels, Brandon Aiyuk, you know, they're out there. Amon-Ra St. Brown. When they get the spotlight, they're doing all the TikTok dances. They're doing all the hip trends and influencing these kids in a big way. And that's the NFL's market. That's a big part of the market. And they're having they're having a huge impact nationally and potentially globally, especially for this game. So they're at the forefront of these Madden covers, of the billboards of the NFL, of the highlight tape. Whenever the NFL makes a video, you see Justin Jefferson doing a gritty. You see these receivers scoring touchdowns, celebrating. You know, they're doing the slime when it gets the first down. Things like that, Mitchell, that showcases these guys. So outside marketing-wise, it's phenomenal for those guys. But the game hasn't changed enough for one single receiver to be this much more valuable than they're putting the same value on it as a DN or a guy who can wreck a game. You know, there aren't very many receivers that could just wreck a game out there right now. They can have great games. I mean, you've seen receivers go for 200. Tyreek goes off, you know, but we also saw those receivers get stopped. We saw L'Jarius Sneed have his way with Tyreek Hill in Kansas City in the playoffs when it needs to happen, when you got to have it. So it's not like these guys are like, hey, you get a great receiver, Super Bowl. No, that's still the quarterback position, and still only one quarterback that's consistently getting there. So I don't know what's going to correct it, and it's not going to happen right now. So guys are going to continue. But Trent Williams is trying to do for the tackle market what Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill did for the receiver market. He's trying to jumpstart it above that $30 million barrier. And I think he's going to be able to do it.
And rightfully so. Absolutely rightfully so. Well, when you overpay, I don't want to overpay. When you pay a wide receiver this amount of money, there's sacrifices that have got to be made on the other side of the roster. And the quarterback market, this kind of leads us into the quarterback market, which has become more and more inflated as the years go on, as the cap space continues to grow. To think that these guys would be getting 50 million plus. When we saw Daniel Jones sign for 40 million the other year, you're like, wait, that Daniel Jones? Is this somebody else? Is this someone I'm unaware of? That Daniel Jones got 40 million bucks? But now the Cowboys have paid $136 million to CeeDee Lamb. They're trying to figure out Micah Parsons, and they got this lingering huge issue with Dak Prescott becoming a free agency next year, Richard, after seeing all these guys, Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love, Tua, everyone getting paid, Jared Goff. Like, if you're Jerry Jones, Richard, how the hell do you handle this situation?
Well, you don't have much of a choice if you're Jerry Jones. This is the good and bad thing about homegrown talent that play at an all-pro level. You don't really got a choice. Just like he didn't have a choice with CD, and CD knew that, and his agency knew that. It's pretty obvious. What you gonna do without me? What You've backed yourself in the corner, and I'm happy to push you even further into that corner. You have to pay me. And so with Dak Prescott seeing Trevor Lawrence get 55, Trevor Lawrence? What has Trevor Lawrence won? Trevor Lawrence has a 1-18 record, Mitchell, when his defense doesn't cause a turnover. I'm not going here nor there. I'm just being totally objective about it. That's tough. That's a tough stat. Now, when you start to hear whispers about, hey, it's the coach's fault. At first it was, hey, Urban Meyer solved the problem. Urban Meyer was the problem. And Trevor Lawrence just needed a coach like Doug Peterson to get him back going, to put him on the right track. Now they're kind of starting to whisper Doug Peterson's the problem. And that's when you start to scratch your head, Mitchell. You start to look at common denominators, and I'm not a math major, but it's starting to look like that's a bit of an overpay. But now he's up there with the top paid quarterback. So now you're putting him in conversations with Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and then you have to ask yourself, are these the same kind of guys? And I don't think you're answering that. And so when Dak Prescott comes to the table, he's going to say, Trevor Lawrence got $55 million a year. I was the second team All-Pro last year. Trevor Lawrence is debatably a top 10 quarterback, and he's getting top 1, top 2 money. And so when you start to have those conversations, you're going to say, hey, I'm not arguing Jared Goff's money because Jared Goff took his team to the NFC Championship. He's playing at a really high level. I'm not arguing Kirk Cousins' money. He deserves the money. He's been productive for a really long time. You can't argue Burrow money, Josh Allen, etc., even Tua Tagovailoa. But you can't argue with them because there are at least probably 10, 12 teams that would take him and he'd start day one and they'd pay him $60 million and not bat an eyelash because the quarterback position is so important to this game right now. And so, I don't know, Mitchell. Jordan Love just got a lot of money. He got 55 a year with a very short resume. And you got to give him all the credit in the world. Because again, I didn't think the Green Bay Packers could strike gold 3 times in a row. And it looks like, for all intents and purposes, they have. And they paid for it. And so, but it's a very, very short window that you've had to really diagnose and observe Jordan Love and say, we're going to make a decision to give him $55 million a year. And now we'll see. We'll see how that affects the rest of the team, because the reason the San Francisco 49ers are able to do what they're able to do because they got a 7th round pick on a rookie contract. That will change dramatically soon. And again, that's when the unfortunate cuts and trades and renegotiations and it's starting to be magic. And that's where Prague is going to have to earn his money. And John Lynch, they're going to have to earn their money trying to figure out those puzzle pieces. That's why they're in a win now, must-win situation. But we'll see. I don't know if he has a choice because Micah Parsons is going to get that money. He's got 3 first-team All-Pros in his first, 4 years? Mitchell, that agent is walking up to that negotiation table saying, hey, a couple million more than Bosa or we don't even have a conversation.
Right. Then how do you pay the 3 of them? I don't know if it's doable. I mean, one of these guys might be on the trading block, and it's certainly not going to be Dak Prescott. So decisions are going to be made. And we talked about it last podcast. This is what happens when you wait. You pay a guy a year earlier, you don't have to worry about this stuff as much. That's why I love my guy, Brad Holmes. He saw Penny Sewell, he's still got another year on his rookie deal after this one. Hey, we're going to pay him now. We're going to take care of him now. And guess what? What he was the number 1 paid tackle in football. Not any longer anymore. Tristan Wirfs now is. And then, like you just said, you wait till Trent Williams gets paid because that number is going to probably go up 3-4 million. And Brad Holmes is going to look like a flat out genius.
100%. Football season is here, and Game Time has you covered. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your team play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Sherman for $20 off. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the redeem code SHERMAN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Well, Richard, I want to talk more about quarterbacks. A former teammate of yours just got named the starting quarterback in Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Russell Wilson. There was a camp battle going on between him and Justin Fields. You talked about it. Do you think this is the right move for the Steelers? Mike Tomlin, a Super Bowl winning coach, going with the Super Bowl winning quarterback?
I don't think there was ever a battle because in a situation where there's a battle, I don't think it happens this way because Russell only played sparingly in the preseason. I want to say he missed a whole week of training camp. In the QB battle, person that misses a week of training camp usually is against the 8-ball and is going to have a hard time winning that battle. But when it's not a quarterback battle, that person's not worried about that. I always thought Tomlin's a fantastic coach, never had a losing season, one of the greatest coaches in National Football League history, and you can argue with your grandma or somebody. But I don't think he was going to go into the season with an unknown. You know, whatever people may say, good or bad about Russell Wilson, I think he had a solid season last year. Only played 15 games. I think he had 23 touchdowns, only 8 interceptions. I think he had a really solid season. The yards probably weren't there. The yards per attempt weren't there. But in the chaotic situation that he was in Denver, I think he made the best of it, and he was able to put a solid product out there. So I don't think you're going to, if you're Tomlin, you're going to go with the unknown. You got to at least give him a chance. Now, if things are shaky for the first 4 games, you know, they start off, 1-3 or 1-4 or something like that, then I think, the noise to make a change. Obviously, Tomlin has never had a losing season, so you'd start hearing that noise get louder and louder, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I think the reason he's never had a losing season because he knows the formula that it takes to win football games. And that formula is good defense, run the football, limit the mistakes from the quarterback. And I think that's why they went and got Russell Wilson, because he's not going to make a ton of mistakes. He's not going to turn the ball over. They don't need to pass it 25, 35 times a game. And so they'll probably throw it 20 times, 22 times a game. They'll run it 35, 40 times, and they'll get out of these games. They'll cause some chaos defensively with the old school superstars, Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, and the boys. And they'll continue to be a really good ball club and have a winning season. So I don't know what will happen throughout the season, but I know that Tomlin doesn't have losing seasons, and I'm not going to bank on him doing it now.
I don't see it either. I mean, Richard, he took this team to the playoffs with, I'm going to rattle off these quarterbacks here and probably create a state of shock for you, but Kenny Pickett and
yes,
my namesake, Mitchell Trubisky, took these guys to the playoffs last year. I mean, you look at the Steelers' schedule opening up with Russell starting. They play at the Falcons, look like a tough team. The Broncos, we'll see. The Chargers, the Colts. I mean, those 4 games are all winnable. I mean, what is it going to take in your eyes for this team to move over to Justin Fields? Because I would think they want to at least take a look at him as their starter, seeing that, hey, they might be able to get somebody at a discount that they can keep long-term, unlike Russell. Richard, when does this change? When do you see them giving him that shot?
Well, I only see it if they lose, 2-3 games in a row early on. And I don't know if I see that just because of Tomlin's history more than I think it's something to do with Russell Wilson. And those games are winnable. Atlanta looks really good. Obviously, they just signed Justin Simmons. They made a trade. Kirk Cousins is going to make Drake London and Kyle Pitts look better than they ever have. I think that's going to be really cool. Bijan Robinson looked really good in his first year. He'll continue that growth, I believe, as a playmaker. And so that'll be tough. Denver, Sean Payton will be on his Prove It tour. And I'm sure Russell will be on his Prove It tour. Like who was right, who was wrong in this situation. And I think that's going to be these games. I wouldn't put anything past the Colts because they always seem to be a hard out for people and they'll do things the right way. So, but I don't think Justin Fields showed enough in the preseason for them to go out and say, all right, man, we're going to start him over Russell. Obviously, it was clear and obvious what we're doing, what he was able to do. He's clear and obviously the better quarterback. He's a great athlete, and I'm sure they'll put packages in for him to get him out on the field, put the ball in his hands, let him make some plays. But I can't see them pulling Russell unless the wheels just absolutely fall off. And Tomlin's not going to let that happen.
Yeah, well, we shall see. Another quarterback. I want to talk a little bit about Josh Allen with the Bills. He was just named the most overrated QB by the NFL players. I personally find that hard to believe. I mean, he won me my fantasy league last year, Rich. What do you think of Josh Allen? Would you term him overrated?
No, I wouldn't term him overrated. He hasn't won in the playoffs a ton. He has the same stigma everybody else does, but I don't think it's any fault of his own. I think he's averaging 70% completion percentage, 300 yards, and not a great number of turnovers in the playoffs. So I wouldn't say I would call him overrated by any stretch. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League, and he's played that way. So to call him overrated just seems uneducated and uninformed or haterish, because he led the league in touchdowns, total touchdowns last year with, I think, 41 or 42. And he's just really played at a high level. Even in the playoffs, he's just running into people that are better. He's running into better teams, better quarterbacks. Joe Burrow's got him a couple times. Mahomes gets him just about every time. And you thought maybe it'll be this different this year. It's January. They're in Buffalo, but he's just just can't get past him.
All right, let's talk about your Niners, Rich. We kind of touched on it a little bit, but I want to take a deeper dive here. Like, what level of worry do you have right now over this Brandon Aiyuk situation? Because as an outsider's perspective, it seems like it's a tremendously huge deal. The fact that this could linger into week 1, you got to worry about paying him big bucks. And then the back end of that, you got to worry about Trent Williams and Brock Purdy. Where does this dust all settle in San Francisco?
My worry level was at the beginning of training camp, it was probably at like a 4. I just trust John Lynch. I trust Kyle. I trust they've had a great organization. But it goes back to your point. The front office gambled, and they gamble. And this is the gamble that front offices take sometimes, that sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. And you don't ever, ever, ever want to wish injury or think injury on a player. But these front offices, they got to let it play out just in case, that just in case. Hey, something happens, you get a knee injury, you get an ankle injury, then that price goes down substantially. And then we're negotiating from a whole different space. But that's the risk you take when you wait. You could go earlier and maybe you get him for 25 and everybody's happy. Hey, we got him in year 3 for 25. You're not thinking, hey, he's going to cost 33 in year 5. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I think they should have went early on him. I think they should have went early on Bosa. I think they should have went early on a number of guys and got those prices down. But, I mean, we are here now, so I'm concerned more about Trent Williams than I am Brandon Aiyuk, because I think at least they're having conversations, just the human nature element of it. I think they'll be able to come to some sort of deal, but Trent Williams is much more important to this offense. Not that BA isn't a tremendous asset and tremendously important in a foundational piece, but that left tackle, you could see it in the preseason. I mean, you don't want your starting quarterback getting hit. I think I saw a drive. I saw one game where Brock dropped back 14 times and he got hit 9 of them. This is the preseason. Guys aren't running anything exotic. They're not running any crazy pressures, nothing that should confuse the offensive line. But when you're missing such a huge, the best left tackle in football, it's going to show. And their O-line is designed to slide away from him, let him take the hard job, and everybody else, hey, we're blocking him by committee. Cool, got that. When you can't do that, it exposes Colton McKivitz a little bit. It exposed, it exposed a lot of things. It exposed some deficiencies within their offensive line. And I think, again, it helps Trent's case because he's like, look, I'll see what it could be without me. Do you really want to sign up for that? Because I'm not showing up until you give me what I'm asking for. And I have no idea. What he's asking for. I would guess it's 30+ million. And I would guess they find a way to get that done, because if they start the season without him, and even then, once he comes, Mitchell, he's a vet. So I'm not worried about Trent, if I'm being honest. I'm not worried about him coming in out of shape or having to adjust or anything like that. But there's that aspect.
Well, if memory serves me right, wasn't Trent Williams out for that 3-game losing streak last year that the Niners went on? I mean, Richard, this guy's value to this team, I mean, he might be the most valuable player for the San Francisco 49ers. And to say that about a left tackle might shock some people, but he is that good. And when he's not on the field, it's noticeable. So the Niners, I think John Lynch has made one mistake over the last couple of years, maybe a couple, maybe not paying these guys early. But the biggest mistake I think he made was a contract for Javon Hargrave, because that contract right there caused them to lose to Forrest Buckner, and now they got this Brandon Aiyuk situation going on. If you don't pay that guy and roll with who you got, things might be a little bit different in San Francisco, but hindsight is always 20/20, Rich, and we'll see what happens from here. But let's go a little bit further north, Richard, to your homeland, Seattle. I know you stopped by training camp for a little bit. The Seahawks was pretty darn good in that last game. They let the big dogs eat a little bit. You saw DK get in the end zone. You saw JSN do his thing. Like, Richard, what are your thoughts about Seattle? Because they've kind of been a dark horse. I don't know what teams expect out of them this year. Is Seattle a legitimate contender in the NFC West?
No question about it. They're legitimate, and I think they're poised to have a really great season. And obviously, I think they make the playoffs because they were built well to begin with. They have the receiving core that's explosive. They have the explosive back in K9. They got a really solid offensive line that was really beat up last year. Both tackles were injured. I think Lucas is still on the shelf for a couple weeks, but they brought in George Fant to help with that transition. Charles Cross is healthy again, and he looks really good. Big monster of a man. I think that's going to be good. Geno looks as good as he's ever been. If you keep him upright and protected, he's as good as anybody right now. You can talk about his history and whatever. I don't really care about that. Since he's been in Seattle and he's been the starter, he's been really good most of the time. Now, he's had moments where he struggled because they can't keep him upright. Nobody does well. You get hit in the face every day. You lose both tackles. That's going to be tough on anybody. On the other side of the ball, I think is where they're going to take their greatest leap.
Yep.
Is because they built this defensive line, and it had me scratching my head for a while, Mitchell, because I was sitting there like, okay, y'all are stockpiling a lot of defensive linemen right now. You got Jaron Reed, you got Leonard Williams, you got Byron Murphy, who you just took in the first round, and you're like, all right, that's a lot. You still got Boye Mafe on the edge.
Yeah.
You just traded for a linebacker to play edge for you. Who am I missing? I'm
Cheney
missing
Nwosu, who is out, unfortunately.
Nwosu's out for the first 4 games, but he was probably their best pass rusher and was probably going to benefit the most. I think Jaron Reed is probably going to benefit the most, but he's up there, and I think Byron Murphy is perfect for this system. And if you just talk about Justin Madubuike from last year in Baltimore, had a career year. I don't think he had more than 3 sacks before Mike McDonald came in and changed that system. And then he comes in and has, I think, 12 or 13 career year. And that's crazy. That's Aaron Donald numbers for a defensive tackle. And so that was really impressive. But that just goes to show what Mike McDonald likes in a D lineman and his D lineman. And they have such tremendous depth. That's what's going to help them.
You got a lot more than the D-line too, Rich. You got Witherspoon. The kid was a stud last year. I mean, he's got that aggression. I know you can speak a heck of a lot better than I can towards cornerback play, but goodness, he's aggressive. And then you got Tyreek Woolen, fast as can be. I mean, Richard, to me, the Seahawks are a dark horse, a contender. There's always that team that rises out of nowhere, and I think the Seahawks could be that this year.
No question. I think the secondary is as good as anybody. I think Tyreek Woolen is set for a career year at the corner. I think Devin Witherspoon has been everything they could have imagined and more. You just listen to Mike McDonald. He glows when talking about him. They're really dynamic. They're playing fast. They're playing confident. My concern is at the linebacker, not the down linebackers that they have, but the guys, the stand-up linebackers. It's just a lot of unknowns there. But in terms of the secondary and the corner play, it's been as good as ever. Feel terrible for Artie Burns. Had an ACL injury in the preseason, non-contact. It just didn't look like anything really happened on the play. And, he was having a really good training camp, really, really poised to make a big difference for this team. And so he's out, and that's a huge blow to that defense. And I don't think enough people are talking about that. And then you got Jordan Love. out there. He's going to be really great. Kobe Bryant moved to safety. That transition is going really well. And so it's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be fun. And you just can see the amount of pride. When I spoke to the team, that's what I impressed upon them that I really liked when watching them, is just the amount of pride, every level. Even when the 2s and 3s come in, they take pride in getting stops, getting the ball, getting off the field, getting 3 and outs, making a difference, making tackles. And I just think that had slowly been sliding away over the last couple of years, but Mike's brought it back, and I'm excited. And that was them running it all vanilla stuff. They weren't running anything crazy, nothing exotic. So when they got your boy Bo Nix in Denver coming into town first week, I think it's going to be a lot for a rookie quarterback to deal with. The noise in Seattle, the fans are passionate. They're excited about a new change and a new team and the energy. It's going to be tough for a rookie to come in here and get a win.
I want to discuss one last topic before we wrap here, Rich. The New York Jets, right? This is Aaron Rodgers finally gets his moment after whatever it was, 5 plays last year going down with the Achilles injury. There's so much hype around this team. I mean, you see so many reports coming out that, they're one of the top 5 rosters in football. A lot of people are picking them to go to the NFC or AFC championship game. Like, what are your true expectations of Aaron Rodgers and the Jets? Is it just hype, or is this more realistic?
It's definitely realistic. I mean, if you just look at the defense last year and the last couple of years, they've been really good. That's why you hate that they're getting wasted. I hate when great defense just gets wasted because of bad quarterback play or bad offensive play or injuries on the offensive side, because they deserve to go in the playoffs with how hard and how well they were playing against some of the top offenses, because they got to deal with Miami and all their speed and Mike McDaniel's dynamic play calling, and Buffalo with Josh Allen and everything Stephon Diggs was bringing before they got rid of him. And so I'm really excited for him. I hope it pans out exactly like just because Saleh's a great dude, a great coach. They deserve it. Their fans deserve it. They've been in a drought for a long time. And I hope he goes out there and, for everything Aaron Rodgers is off the field and all the controversy and, on that field, he's still a savant, and he's still a problem, and he's still an issue, and he's still one of the greatest players to ever strap up cleats in the National Football League or any other football league. And so you give him all the respect in the world. His teammates love him, and I'm excited for Garrett Wilson to have his breakout year after what he's had to deal with. Even Lazard, I'm sure he's excited for
I'm sure he
A-Rod
is too.
to be back. They're going to have a tough first game going to San Francisco, to Santa Clara. Aaron has just not historically played well against the San Francisco 49ers.
You don't say, Rich.
But maybe that changes. But
I think you got an interception ball in your house that speaks to that a little bit.
That speaks to that. Yeah, it was a couple games where the score was double digits. But yeah, it's really a great roster. But they just got to put it all together on this season. This is the all-in season. They've had good season. They've been a feel-good story. Everybody's felt bad for the tackle situation. I think they lost 4 or 5 tackles last year, both on the right and left side. So I hope everything comes together and they can just get in the playoffs and make noise and just play to the standard and play to their potential. That'd be fun to see.
No question. Well, Richard, next week, I could not be more pumped up, man. This is going to be the return of the NFL season. But more importantly, it's the return of the Richard Sherman Power Ranks, man. I mean, that is what I'm personally most excited for. Next week, we will have our season preview. We'll do all your picks for MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, who you see winning it. I can't wait, Richard. I will let you wrap this thing up.
Mitchell, I will have a hard time not putting it's not going to – your Detroit Lions may make an appearance, Mitchell. They've earned a lot of respect. They built a team, culture. It's hard to bet against them right now, Mitchell.
Sorry, Richard, they're going to be in your top 5, but I don't think they're going to be 2, 3, 4, or 5, my friend.
Right. I don't know, Mitchell. I'm still, still got calculations. My algorithm still putting information. But we appreciate you guys joining us as always. Thanks for listening. Wherever you are in the world, you could be listening to anything and you're listening to us. Hit that sub button if you're new. to get a clue who's who and all that nonsense. Appreciate you. See you soon.